Hi, I'm Ron Young for Ego Communications. Welcome to our podcast. Today we're going to discuss a couple other things. We're going to talk about why do you work with a technology advisor. Along with me today, I have Rob Hill from my brokerage firm, that they call me technology service brokerage firm, from Telarus. Rob, tell me a little bit about Telarus and the support.
Sure. So Rob Hill with Telarus, we're referred to as a technology service broker or a technology service distributor. One of the main reasons that a technology advisor would want to work with a company like Telarus, there's several things. One is you sign one agreement and you get access to over 450 plus technology providers. The other reason is all different types of level of support, engineering report, sales enablement report, education, and then obviously last but not least is residual commissions and spiffs and bonuses. And at the end of the day, it really empowers the technology advisor like yourself to provide better outcomes for your customers because you have access to so many different technology providers. You can become agnostic. You're not just kind of pushing a square peg in a round hole, so to speak, but it gives you the ability to get the customer the right solution for what they're trying to accomplish while generating residual income for your business.
Well, I mean, the one reason we met end of 2010, beginning of 2011. I've been in the industry for a while. I worked with another brokerage firm before, but when I decided to work with Rob, number one, we built a relationship.
Sure.
So not only do I build relationships, like building relationships with my customers and get that trust factor, but I like when I get support from like you, when I do that, and everything has really grown a lot. If I don't know it, which I don't know it a lot, and a lot of advisors from the training we've been to, everybody's kind of fumbling in the same place.
Sure.
But having 22 engineers behind us that will assist us in a solution along with the customer, which is fantastic. So I really appreciate that help
Right.
and everything that Telarus has done. So how long have you been with Telarus? I know there was a merger in between, but
Sure. So I've been in the channel space for about 13 years. The company that I was with prior to it, TCG, Telecom Consulting Group, was acquired about 3 years ago. This month in June, Telarus bought them out, which was a great thing. But I've been in the technology space since 1998, working with companies like AT&T, MCI, Sprint. Sold software for about 6 years, and then for the last 12 plus years have been in the channel working with partners like yourself.
I mean, it's like we kind of have the same background. Yeah, I worked for an independent internet company I was director of, but I did the same thing working for Bell South / AT&T during the merger. And the reason why I took this and made my model to be an advisor was because I had options.
Sure.
When you work at AT&T, oh, we're the best, and Comcast isn't any good, or this carrier is no good, we're the best, but then they're not. They might have a niche.
Right.
So
Sure.
I like the flexibility of being able to offer a few different choices of solutions,
Sure.
and I always welcome that too. Now, you and I have known each other for a while, and what I like about the channel, which is a group of advisors like myself and the suppliers, is it's a family.
Absolutely. The channel always talks about relationships, and relationships drive business. You're going to work with people that you like, that you respect, that you trust, that that are going to give you the best solution. And again, that's why we have over 400 technology providers. The reason why we have so many providers, and we have so many providers in the same service vertical, it's not one size fits all, or
Right.
one provider is the best. And again, that's why we give partners choices, options. And when you work with someone on the supplier side, yes, sometimes they're going to be the right fit, and sometimes they're going to have the best solution, and sometimes that supplier's not. But the good news is for partners like yourself, we have 8 other companies in that service vertical, or a dozen or 20 that would be the right fit for what your customer's looking to accomplish. So it again, it really empowers you, and you sell from a position of confidence that you're going to get the customer the right solution because you have so many options.
And even again within the channel of what I think my last stat was like 6,000 to 7,000 solution providers, not solution providers, but agents like myself around the country.
Yep.
And that's even a family. There's a lot of companies here that, yes, am I a competitor? Have I got run up against them? No. But I even think that family membership is there. Like, I gave Jason a shout out from Next Gen. Jason and I have bounced ideas off of.
Yeah.
I want to know what he's doing, how he's doing it, why he chose a provider. If it's someone new I want to start doing, I try to get information from, how would they work for you? What's your customer support like?
Sure.
And that's even a lot of internal education between all of us.
Yeah. I mean, certain partners are open to share best practices, what works, how they're doing things, what they're seeing in the marketplace, hot products, hot services. I've worked well with XYZ supplier, and this person is great to work with. So, yeah, I would definitely say that, the partner community, the other IT consultants, the MSPs, they certainly share ideas, bounce ideas off each other, share best practices, and it definitely is a tight knit community and very much family oriented, so to
Right,
speak.
exactly.
Yep.
Now, kind of going on to what everybody asks when I'm out and about and talking to companies, and I hate product dumping, but I'm going to kind of go through what Eagle Communications, alongside with the support of Telarus and their engineers, what we can accomplish for a company. The technology solution maps that we have is cybersecurity. And just recently, because of AI, everything in cybersecurity can have an AI section to it, or
Sure.
a portion of it. Mobility, to where we do mobile management, device management, bill management. An employee loses a phone, shut it off, keep it secure. So we do mobility management, customer experience, which is whether it's how a call is handled, how fast your paper flow goes and your turnaround there. Cloud management services, again, AI driven too. And of course, we have answering services, marketing services, and something I learned yesterday's training is we can do physical security.
Yes. Yeah.
You have a job site, a large job site that you're building that you don't want materials stolen. We can do that.
Yeah, there's not too much you can't do. As obviously you can see here in the technology solutions map, it's a lot. I mean, you can sell everything from network to contact center to cybersecurity, cloud services, SD-WAN, mobility, IoT. I mean, you can sell EV charging stations, you can sell digital signage, credit card processing, software applications. I mean, there's not much that we don't cover in the technology space. And it's a lot. I mean, that is a lot of information, a lot of technology to kind of wrap your arms around. And we always tell partners, well, I'm not familiar with that technology, or I've never sold that technology, but that's okay. You don't necessarily have to be the expert.
Right.
You can have a general understanding, but we have experts. Telarus has experts. We have 18 technical sales engineers on our team that have over 500 different technology certifications, from industry certifications to supplier certifications. We have 4 CISSPs on our team. So the Telarus engineering team is a world class of guys and gals that are super sharp, have gone down those talk tracks working with all types of companies in all types of industries, from small companies to enterprise, Fortune 500 companies. So, they're there as an extension of you, the partner. And we want you to bring them in early and often, as like we talked about yesterday in the
Right,
training.
right.
And they can assist partners from the very beginning of the sales process, from discovery call to recommending specific providers, getting demos done, all the way to the end of the deal, closing the deal.
Well, I mean, what's nice about that, just to let everybody out there know, is that with all these certifications and all these engineers that we have access to, that does not that is not billed to the customer.
Right.
That is a free service. Imagine if I needed to hire a CISO, hire someone that knew unified communications or UCAS, I'd be paying $175, $200, $250,000 a year for their salary.
Sure.
Okay, so I would have to charge for that. Well, back out to everybody is all of this is in support of the customer for the right solution. And another thing that I really appreciate with Telarus is every year, and of course I couldn't do this as an individual, even a lot of the small MSPs in Tennessee couldn't, is we have a tech trends report to where they interview, I forget what the size of the companies.
Most of them were mid-market.
Yeah, mid-market and enterprise IT, and then 550 technology advisors in the channel. And Telarus put this together to find out, what's driving today's business decisions. Like IT leaders are right now, your businesses are 90% of companies right now are actually looking to work with a technology advisor.
Right. Well, I mean, again, you talk about technology as a whole. I mean, you got technology. The spectrum is massive. It's a massive amount of different technologies, different suppliers. They all do different things. They all have their niche, so to speak. And then all of a sudden, AI has really blown up in the last couple of years. Somebody went to a recent technology trade show, and they said pretty much 90% of the solution providers that were there, they were discussing AI in some way, shape, or form. And then to your point, most businesses, they're trying to understand how AI can help their company.
Right.
Obviously, you have companies that are utilizing and implementing AI, and they're the forward-thinking companies, and they've been doing it for a little while. But you have the vast majority of companies out there that kind of understand what AI does, but they're not really sure, how do we use it? How do we implement it? What departments is it going to benefit? So that's where a partner like yourself can lean on our resources. We have AI experts on our team that can help develop a road plan, a strategy on how to use AI for different products and services like cybersecurity, for cloud, for contact center. An easy one is, chat bots. You go on a company's website, a chat bot pops up. And a lot of times, 5-7 years ago, those were people doing the chat bots, right? They were talking to you. Now, those chat bots, 80% of the time now that have been recently deployed, that's AI talking to you. That's not Susie or Mike behind the keyboard. These are automated chat bots with, responses that they're getting from, a large language model. So,
and what's good there is being that I work with multiple UCAS, CCAS providers, that's unified communications or contact center as a service, is everyone does something different based on their experience. We've been in a couple with this particular supplier, is their chatbot is like a hybrid. A person will start out the conversation, then the chatbot takes the basics. Mm-hmm. And then if that person needs to step in, at the same time when that customer is asking a question, a screen will pop up of telling them how to answer and give them a couple options on how to present what that discussion is going. And then they stay involved as long as possible using that chat bot by putting in the words on the drop down. And then when it comes to, we'll call it the hideous paperwork, I'm ready to go, give me your name, number, then the chat bot takes over.
Yeah.
So there's different types of AI in that scenario. So where an advisor comes along is, what fits you? Do you have the manpower or do you not?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think you see, AI in a lot of, situations that are automating repetitive tasks,
right,
or easy kind of entry level tasks that's again repetitive and easy to do, where you're getting the same type of questions and things come in, customer support issues, technical support issues. A well-trained, well-developed chatbot can, instead of having a human do it, it can take place of the human and get it resolved just as quick. and then that frees up that human's time to do something that's a little bit more important, right?
Right. Even same thing. Going through some stats here is the question is where leading companies are currently most leveraging AI. Well, 70% of businesses are using AI for the customer experience, which could be a chatbot. It could be the way the calls are directed. It could be a script to a salesperson that a keyword triggers what their response is going to be like in a contact center. In other words, I'm going to tell a story. I'm going to steal it from Sam. Sam, which is a Telarus employee, works in a call center or a suicide center on the weekends. And Sam, if you're listening, if I mess up, I think I got it close. There was a call that came in, and in that center, she had told me that they have 4 minutes to de-escalate that call, to de-escalate what's going to happen. Well, as that person is talking, and the trigger words is, I'm going to, I'm done, I'm going to kill myself, I'm going to jump, I'm going to stab whatever the case is, it comes up with a script on how to de-escalate it. At the same time, it's kind of being graded, and about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes into the call, then a supervisor or someone else gets in the call. Not to complicate things for a third body, but to try to understand how that call's going. So they're dialing 911, the ambulance, the police, the fire department. And that to me was, that call did get de-escalated, but that's help, even in sales.
Sure.
Because at the end of that call's graded on not to babysit people's calls, but here's how you could improve. But look at that in a sales scenario.
Right.
If you have, and you tell me if you've experienced any customers that you work with other advisors, but how many times are you driving and you can't take notes while you're driving and you're talking to people, especially when you're driving your car, in Alabama for a Bama game, Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
But how many times that you on a call and say, oh man, I forgot what part of the calls are. Well, if that call's recorded and you get back to the office, you can pull that call up and read it. It'll rate what your conversation was, but then again, there'll be notes there.
Sure.
That you can write down so your follow-up is right. Now, have you experienced, or what other advisors have you worked with that's been implemented with?
Yeah, so so we had a training, and I'll give a shout out to one of our contact center providers, DialPad. Yep. So they had a training exercise where they wanted to show the technology, because contact center software applications, are kind of sexy. It's a type of technology that you need to see in action. So what they did is they acted like the customer was a travel agency, and one of the guys calling in to the contact center person, the person at the travel agency that's receiving the phone calls, and how powerful DialPad's contact center tool was. So the person on the call called in. They said, hey, this is, Leisure Cruises of America, whatever. The customer was like, hey, I want to go on a cruise, specific dates. So they had a specific time frame, July 7th through the 14th. They specified, where they were based out of. They specified where they wanted to go, where they wanted to go on the cruise, whether it was Caribbean or they wanted to cruise to Alaska. And the contact center technology is listening in on the phone call, right? So it's hearing what the customer is saying to, the travel agent employee. And it automatically populates on the screen, what the dates were, what the customer's name is. It's taking all the information, all the notes, to your point, in the background, and it's then populating the specific cruises that are available for those dates and where they're wanting to go. So as long as your employee can kind of read from a screen pop, all that information is there. They can share the information with the customer, give pricing, talk about ease of training for an employee. Again, if you can read, you read the screen pops, the training is pretty much really quick. You can get someone onboarded and in a seat working with a customer in 1 to 2 days. All they need to learn is the DialPad contact center application, which is pretty straightforward. Another one that we had was it was an electrical company up in the Maryland area, and this electrical company serviced like DC, Maryland, there was like a kind of a tri-county area, but the electrical company did, regular residential work, local work, they did state work, and then they also did government work. So they had kind of four segments of business that they worked with, and they implemented a contact center solution. And it was in that those people receiving those calls, it was a little bit of a complicated job because, in the electrical space, when you're an electrician, you deliver, those type of products and services, you have residential products that the government doesn't really use, and you have government products that, let's say the residential market doesn't use, and so on and so forth. But you had all these sub verticals. So again, a lot of information to try to remember, retain, and there was always a high turnover for that job. People, it was just a high turnover position. So they bought this tool, this contact center tool. It was super easy to train people because again, all they had to do is read from the screen. When someone's calling in, it recognizes that this is a government contract or a state contract or this is residential, and then it populated only those services in that vertical, and they could give pricing. They could schedule dates and times to do everything. So it really just makes onboarding a new employee super quick and easy. And the other thing is the customer's getting all of the right information from square one.
Right.
Because the system, the solution is giving all that information. And as long as the information is correct that they're getting, then the customer's getting the correct information from square one. There's no back and forth or you gave me this pricing, it's not the right thing, it's not the right solution. So it cuts down on errors, like human errors,
Right.
which is super powerful. And then, we talk about, customer experience. How do we provide the best customer experience regardless of the type of business that you're in? Tools like this can empower providing a great customer experience, not only a great customer experience, but a great employee experience. You as an employee, you want to work with the best tools and solutions that you can, right? You don't want to work with an old, laptop that's 10 years old. You don't want to work with an old phone system that's 10 years old. You want to work with the latest and greatest technology that empowers you to do your job better.
And then look at the time of what that is done. As a travel agent, if you gather all this information, and hey, we're all human, you may miss some of the information you're getting. You have AI already giving you what's available already instead of you hanging up, doing the research yourself. So saving you hours just to get that information, to get that booking for the trip.
Yeah.
So that's what customer experience does. It helps the employee perform their job better. It saves some time. It turns that in this case, that trip around, and the people are getting their information on the first time.
Right.
Not second or third call.
Yeah, and there's so many, and that's just a small example of what some of these tools can do. Obviously, there's a ton of analytics. Some of these solutions can actually listen to the customer's voice and understand if they're upset, they're frustrated, they're mad. Obviously, if they're upset and mad and they say, hey, I want to speak to your supervisor, you can, the supervisor can be notified via text, or it rings to their office, and they can jump on the phone immediately to try to, again, kind of de-escalate the situation.
Yep.
Also, you have a lot of analytics in the background. You're not going to try to sell a customer something if they're upset and pissed off at the situation or the
Right.
company.
Exactly.
So once you get them back into good graces, they're happy. Hey, thanks for taking care of that problem. Now you may schedule a call a week later to upsell them that product and services that that they might need or might be interested in, but it gives you actionable data.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about data is the new oil for business, right? And companies have a ton of data. It's typically just sitting in the background on an Excel sheet, on a computer. But what a lot of these solutions that we provide, contact center solutions, AI solutions, they can understand the data, look at it, and then make it actionable for salespeople, marketing teams, customer support teams. And that provides a better customer experience.
Right. I mean, in other words, kind of recapping this is the experience for the employee, the experience for the customer, the solving the problem on the first call, and maybe a follow up on how things are going after that. But it seems to be on every AI that I've just looked at is, departments are currently leveraging AI solutions for their business functions. 68% for customer success and support.
Yep.
Have support. Keep that customer. And then you have top desired outcomes from AI adoption is companies are looking for productivity. That could be streamlining procedures and policies. So don't go out and just say, I want AI. AI is not ChatGPT. Yeah, large language model is part of a service, but ChatGPT is not going to streamline your Excel spreadsheets. Now, okay, and we talked about that yesterday. Now, another statistic is when you're looking into AI solutions, is you need to worry that the data that you're giving AI, I'll just word it this way, not the technical word, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
So you have to have some data integrity
Sure.
before you move to an AI. So when you're thinking about putting AI as a solution to streamline for your communications, for your cybersecurity, you have to make sure that all the data that you have is going in clean.
Sure.
Because if not, it's going to mess you up. Worse, it's going to help you.
Yeah. Our engineers kind of said it just kind of how you said it, a little differently, but good data, good AI, bad data, bad AI. So, you kind of have to massage your data, get it the right way that the AI is going to interpret it, accept it, so that you can get, the right results to the customer or to the end user.
And that's why you deal with an advisor. If I was just a salesperson and I worked for an AI company, I'd probably just sell you something. Right. When you work with an advisor, we're more concerned about the business and how it's going to help. Whether it's save time, save money, save on productivity, streamline procedures, have that customer experience, and then we bring the technology in to do that.
Right.
So it's all business acumen, all of what you're trying to achieve.
Well, and I think the reason that most of the technology companies that we work with, I forget the exact statistic, but these technology companies are looking. They're like, should we hire more direct reps or should we invest more in the channel? Well, over the last probably decade, most companies are hiring less direct reps, right, and spending more money on in the channel. And the reason why is to your point, a direct rep works for XYZ provider. They have the bag of tools that XYZ provider has, and that direct rep is their job is to find an opportunity, sell it, and move on to the next guy. And a lot of those direct reps, won't be there in a year or 2 years. They're moving on to a different position. Whereas you, the technology advisor, I'm sure you've worked with customers for 10, 15 years,
yep,
still today. So you're there long term, right? You've met with them when they open the doors. You've worked with them in the growing the company, middle stages of the company, and I'm sure you've worked with companies as they've closed down the doors or sold their company.
Right.
So you're there long term, 5, 10, 15 years. So you're embedded with them. They don't see you as a sales rep. They see you as literally a partner, an extension of their business, ideally. And obviously, you're going to know a lot more in depth of what that company is, their resources, their challenges, versus a direct rep walking in off the street, cold calling them, getting in the door, and trying to sell them, whatever technology widget it is, and then they're here today, gone tomorrow. So you have a lot more insight into that business. You want to be there long term. You want to sell them the right technology solutions today, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And the great thing about partnering with Telarus is we enable you to do that with all the different technology suppliers that we have in our portfolio and all of the resources that we have, technical sales engineering staff. We constantly do training events live, like we did yesterday at the Ascend cybersecurity event. And then we also have Telarus University, which is an online library, if you will, with hundreds of hours of trainings on suppliers, cable finder, you name it, it's in there. So, and in this space, your learning and your training, it never ceases. It's ongoing.
Along with this is that not only do I get support from Telarus and their agents and you and other agents there and through the university, but we also get direct access to a channel manager, a manager assigned to a territory. So I build a relationship with the customer. Number one, to find out, hey, what am I doing? Because if it's not a big enough job for me to bring an engineer in, I can talk to the provider. So it's like, and there's some of our providers that are only channel based. Right. You cannot buy them on Google. So don't Google something and say, this is the best because it's got the highest ranking. No, they just put money into SEO.
Right.
Working with an advisor, I have multiple layers of support so I can bring the right solution, because nothing's a one-size-fit-all. Even in voice over IP or UCaaS, everybody's going to be different. Someone's going to be minimal. Someone's going to be more intricate. Some want AI. Someone don't want AI. Some want text-to-speech or an autoresponder on that. And this is why I am so enthused and still in the business this long, because of the support and my drive to make sure that businesses are making money.
Right. Absolutely.
Because one thing, I'm on a conference call once a week with my largest customer, 150 locations. It's a medical facility. We have talked about, number one, I'm there part of helping assist in the project management of installs of their circuits. We just went to another provider that has an edge boot router to where it kind of eliminates all tier one, and that to where it reboots the router, power cycles the modem, and then if the modem doesn't come in, 4G, 5G, LTE, backup goes up so they're not down, and then it sends a trouble ticket. Well, they're moving to that, so now we're setting that up. But in the same meantime, understanding where their drugs are and their medication is, we're discussing refrigeration management. Because if that temperature of their refrigerator drops so much, they're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. IoT would be a great thing. Anything that has sensors or can be measured, that's an IoT opportunity. And again, going back to, why do we have 7 or 8 different IoT companies in the portfolio? Because one of them probably specializes in devices to measure refrigeration or tracking assets or whatever the specific application is. We want to give our partners like yourself access to the best of breed of technology suppliers in that specific service vertical, whether it's wireless or IoT or SD-WAN or cloud or cybersecurity. We try to cover the checkerboard, so to speak, with every option so that you can help out every customer. If a customer says, hey, I'm looking for internet, and you're like, great, I have access to pretty much every internet provider out there.
Right.
So you have a very, very high close ratio, because if they want AT&T, you got AT&T. You want Comcast, they got Comcast. You need Spectrum, and the list goes on and on and on. So it empowers you, because you have access to everybody, to win and close a lot of business at a high win rate.
Well, at the same time, too, is we also have an aggregator. What an aggregator does is resell this. So in other words, if you're a nationwide company or and you have multiple locations, Comcast may not be in every area. AT&T might not be there. This way you get one provider, one bill, and most of the aggregators that are there, it's U.S. support.
Right.
So if you call some supplier and things go overseas and you're on hold for 20 minutes and 30 minutes, maybe you want to move that service to an aggregator, because that aggregator is your first level expense, and they deal with that. What does that do? On a support side, you're getting local support. They may have a tech that they can dispatch in order to do it instead of waiting, especially if it's a managed circuit to where they see it down. And so your downtime is minimized, and you're not on hold for a half hour, 20 minutes, whatever. So even that, a lot of my national customers I have with aggregators, because Spectrum might be here, AT&T might be here, Frontier might be here, Comcast might be here. It all comes in on one bill and makes everything streamlined.
Right. And I mean, to your point, if you have a customer, one of your medical healthcare customers, 150 locations, throughout the U.S., you might, to get internet connectivity to each of those 150 locations, you might work with 10 or 15 different internet providers.
That's about what we got.
That's a lot of different people that you have to deal with, that you have to put time and attention to. Or to your point, you go to the aggregator, they have access to all of those internet providers, and they deal with all the chaos and the hecticness in the background. So instead of dealing with 12, 15 different internet providers, you deal with the one aggregator, and they manage all the chaos in the background. One back to pat or throat to choke, so to speak, versus 12 or 15 backs to pat or throats to choke. So and that's where the value comes in is dealing with one person versus dozens of people.
Yeah, with this particular customer is that on the initial, when they're opening locations, and they've been doing a lot lately, is we're actually getting from the aggregator a couple different options, because there might be a supplier here or an internet provider here, but they don't offer the speed that they want. So
Right.
they'll give them a few options. So now they're getting options within my options.
Sure.
And again, providing a solution strictly for them. So I don't know if there's anything else. We've kind of covered a lot today, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to let the public know that working with an advisor, it's somebody who has multiple options for you in order to grow your business, in order to possibly save you money and increase your productivity, whether it's with AI or not AI, instead of buying direct. Because I think a lot of companies right now are stopping by going direct to a supplier.
Right. Well, and we just had our cybersecurity event yesterday, and obviously SMB customers use partners all the time, because an SMB customer, a business of 10, 20, 30 employees, they typically don't have a full-time IT guy
Right.
on staff. They might have, you might be their IT guy, right?
Right.
And we even talked about mid-market companies, businesses that have 100 to 500 employees or 500 to 1,000 employees. Those size companies do have IT staffs in place. But even those companies that have an IT staff in place of, 10, 15 IT employees, you talk to them about how's everything going. A lot of those companies are just keeping their heads above water. They're not being able to finish projects on time. They don't have maybe, anyone really dedicated to cybersecurity. Oh yeah, Bob overlooks that, and Mary, sometimes she handles that. But if they got hacked, they don't really have a plan in place to get back up and running.
Or respond.
Yeah. So a lot of times, I think the stat was 80% of mid-market and larger companies are looking to a partner to help with cloud initiatives, cybersecurity initiatives, as well as AI initiatives. We talked about yesterday, Jason Stein and Bob, our engineer, talked about just coming in and understanding the company's landscape of who they have, what resources on the IT team. If we could take something off your plate, like help desk, would that help you? Oh yeah, help desk is a big pain in the neck for us.
Right.
So we're going to outsource just the help desk. Oh, if you could help us manage our Microsoft Office 365 and in email spam filtering and email protection. If you could take that off our plate, as well as the help desk, now our IT guys might be able to complete these projects on time that we give them. So again, I think the preconceived notion is some partners think that, well, I don't need to call into the larger companies because they have a staff, a huge team of IT resources. Well, that couldn't be farther from the truth. Those larger companies, the mid-market larger companies, need just as much help, but maybe in a different manner as the smaller guys.
Well, like I said, 150 location, they have a staff of 5.
Right.
And they're managing it all.
Yeah.
And what happens is, as a technology advisor, we can do professional services nationwide. I can find a tech in California. I can find a tech in Nebraska. I can find a tech in Florida, to minimize, hey, what happens if you're located here, but you're running a large company, you may have another branch or whatever corporate in Florida, as this one does, is you got to book airfare, book a hotel room, make sure the tools are there, and flying that. What's that expense?
It's a lot.
Okay, so by working with an advisor, I give you flexibility to take some things off your plate that are giving you cumbersome. So
Sure.
thanks, Rob. Anything else you want to say or?
No, I appreciate you having me on the podcast. I've appreciated your partnership for what is it, like 10 plus years now?
We're going on for 15.
15. Well, I lose track after 10, but you've been a great partner. I know that Eagle Communications has won numerous awards. You do a lot of good work in the community. You do a lot of work with some charities. So I appreciate the partnership. I appreciate all the good things you do. Appreciate the business, and here's to your continued success.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.